Good evening, dosto. Thank you firstly for your overwhelming support when I did my first live on Sam Bahadur. Now I will be talking about the relation between Sam Bahadur and Vijay Diwas. Now, what is Vijay Diwas? Vijay Diwas is basically the day when the Indian army crushed the Pakistani army and created Bangladesh. This was a concerted effort between all the aspects of our great nation. The actions by the Indian army and also the political machinery which garnered support from the erstwhile USSR at that time. And also, we must not forget that the Prime Minister of that time had the guts of getting all the support and also asked the army to go in for a military action. The military action, yes, was very much required because the amount of refugees that had started coming into the neighboring states of Assam, Tripura, West Bengal were more than 3 lakhs, and India itself was a growing nation at that time because we had just got our independence in 47 and had fought 3 wars with Pakistan and one with China. So our economy was also trying to grow, but then there was no other option because the Bangladeshis or the East Pakistanis at that time had been tread or trodden upon for very long because after partition, West Bengal and East Bengal were created, and then this divide was basically on religion. The West Bengalis were majority Muslim, Hindus, sorry, and the East Bengalis were majority Muslims. But then, despite this religious divide, they were living harmoniously. Now, coming on to our own independence, and 2 nations were carved out, Pakistan and India. Pakistan again were divided into 2 portions, the West Pakistan and East Pakistan. The East Pakistans were predominantly the Muslim Bengalis, while the West Pakistan constituted of basically the Punjabis, the Pathans, the Baluchs, who wanted to rule the roost, while the Bengalis in East Pakistan wanted their language also to be brought into the mainstream, and also they themselves wanted to be brought into the mainstream, which was not happening. Why? Because they were the minorities and the West Pakistanis wanted to rule. So started the war of Bangladesh liberation, and in March 71 the Awami League under the leadership of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman brought the revolution to such an extent that it had started spreading, and basically Yahya Khan, when he took over, wanted elections so that there could be democracy and a political stability in Pakistan, be it West Pakistan or East Pakistan. And before that, when the elections were held in the East Pakistan Legislative Assembly, The majority sweep was by the Awami League, and that was about 167 seats out of the 169, while the total seats in the West Pakistan legislature was about 313, and that was a majority. So Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was leading the Pakistan's People Party, did not want the East Pakistanis to come into the mainstream. While Mujibur Rahman started battling for his rights, and that is the time when the Admiral Ehsan referendum was written about the sixth line, and also Awami League put in the 6 points with the aim for the right to vote, right to govern, and to have a right of political freedom, which was quest upon. When, after winning the elections, also Mujibur was not allowed to come into the mainstream politics, started the liberation of the East Pakistan, which created Bangladesh later on. Also, here I must mention that the Bengalis in East Pakistan were always downtrodden. The massacres of 64 and also before that in the 50s were signs that they were not being allowed political freedom and their basic rights. So the first incident happened when the Bengalis or the East Pakistanis in rebel attacked the so-called Biharis in East Pakistan, and about 300 Biharis were massacred. And then there was a call for stalling the active government by the Awami League. And at that time, Yahya Khan gave directions to Jal Tika to launch Operation Searchlight. And the beginning was by a massacre of revolutionaries who were peacefully giving out their feelings. And the Pakistani army came upon them at the University of Dhaka and killed everyone there brutally. So that was the beginning of Operation Searchlight, and a massive genocide started happening with about more than 30 lakh people who were nearly killed, 3 lakh ladies who were raped, and many people who were shot. And the target were the intellects, the political leaders, and also the downtrodden poor who had not much of say. So they started escaping towards the border states in India. And that is the time the erstwhile Prime Minister Indira Gandhi decided that war was a option. So in 26th of April 71, she called a cabinet meeting with the then Chief of Army Staff General Sam Manekshaw in attendance. The great Sam Bahadur, whose movie or autobiography or biopic is making rounds in today's cinematic world. He is the first field marshal, one of the first officers to have passed out of the portals of the Indian Military Academy at Dehradun. So he was called upon, and Mrs. Gandhi, to satisfy her subordinates or the cabinet ministers, asked Manekshaw to go in for battle, which is said that he refused at that time and point, stating very correct reasons that there were rains, and due to the slush, his tanks could not go ahead. The rivers would be swollen. Army could not be able to cross the rivers, and also the snow would have melted. There would be another front, which was the Chinese front, which could be opened up. And also, he mentioned, or diplomatic circles, it was seen that America might pitch in to stop this battle, while Indira Gandhi had blatantly said that she is going to take in refugees, and she started garnering support from the foreign nations also, who showed sympathy. And that is how, when Sam Manekshaw said no to war and also asked for proper time and equipment, which was given to him, and he started planning for war. And the political circles got Russia to sign the Treaty of Cooperation and Friendship in August, so that in case America came in, which it did because the Seventh Fleet is supposedly said to have started moving, and Russia had kept its own fleet ready in case of an emergency, and USSR of that time had told Pakistan also not to go in back to battle, but then Yahya Khan did not heed to his says, and the preparation for war started off. And in West Pakistan, a movement started of crush India, or down with the traitor. Traitor was Mujibur in this case. And this is the time when our people, the Indian army, collaborated with the Mukti Bahini, that is the underground guerrilla force which was being created by an retired Bangladeshi officer, Colonel Usmani, and a parallel government by the East Pakistanis under the leadership of Mujibur Rahman at Badrinath Tala came up with a regular armed forces and the non-regular armed forces. So they collaborated and trained by our own army at that time covertly started acting and created incursions and started helping the Mukti Bahinis to attack the East Pakistan army posts, and weapons and arms were supplied. And in this state, Sam Bahadur had given a date for the battle, and he knew Yahya Khan's mentality that he would react, and General Yahya gave a warning that the war clubs are mongering up and they should go in for war. So Pakistan also was preparing for war. And on the 3rd of December 1970, by Pakistan was launched when the Pak Air Force had about strikes on 11 airfields of Agra, Avantipur, Anandpur, and other places. And the Indian Air Force, which was already ready because the three chiefs of the three forces had coordinated well, and they were ready for the battle. and Indian Air Force retaliated with airstrikes and damaged many of front posts of Pakistan. And in this case, the battles which were important were the Battle of Longewala, where a company of 23 Punjab stopped a brigade of Pakistani tanks and gave them a fight throughout the night and in the early mornings. This is a coordination of the Air Force and the Army fighting together. In the early hours, these tanks were disseminated by the Air Force, and a graveyard of tanks was created, and the post was saved, and Jaisalmer could not be taken by the vile actions of the Pakistani armored. Then was the Battle of Basantar, which is also known as the Battle of Barapind or Battle of Shakargarh. This happened between 4th to 16th of 1971, and this is one of the major battles which was fought in the western sector towards the Jammu area. Basically, this compasses the complete Shakargarh area where tank battles were fought along the river Byas and the river Ravi and the Bulge, which was close to the Indian main road link to Kashmir, was defended. And let me put it that this area was a defender's nightmare. But then our army and the infantry and the armored combined together held this area and did not let the Pakistani tanks go ahead. This was basically the Pakistanis' one corps, which included three infantry divs and one armored division and a armored brigade in support, which was to go in. But then the Indian First Corps, which is the Strike Corps, also with later on, stopped out this place and they were disseminated again and stopped, and this road link was protected. In this, we had many martyrs like Second Lieutenant Arun Khetarpal, Major Hoshiar Singh, and others. While in the east, the actions which were taken because the strategy of Sam Bahadur was basically to defend the western sector and not let Pakistan ingress into our territory, but just hold them back. While in the east, the aim was to reach Dhaka and encircle it, making the East Pakistani army surrender. So at this stage, when the battle was on, we had the Battle of Gangasagar in the east, and also one of the biggest heliborne operations which was done at Tangal, where about 3,000 paratroopers were airdropped, and also at Ganga Sagar, Lance Naik Albert Ikka, who was given or honored with the Paramveer Chakra posthumously, decimated the bunkers and defenses of the Pak army and was instrumental in taking over of the railway station, which was a major rail link for movement of our troops. The actions which basically took part in the east was basically, the strategy was that from one direction, the two corps commanded by Lieutenant General T.N. Raina was to enter basically from the west, four corps commanded by General Sagat Singh to enter from the east, and the 33 Corps commanded by Lieutenant General Thapan was to enter from the north, while the 101 Communication Zone commanded by Major General Gurbaksh was to provide support from the northeast. And these were the basic lines from all three directions, because the Indian Navy had blockaded the Chittagong port, not letting the Pak Navy in the east take any action. And here I should also mention that Op Trident was also carried out by the Indian Navy, in which covert OSA subs and armed boats launched a massive attack on Karachi port, destroying many a ship, where PNS Ghazi was sunk in the west, while we lost INS Kukri also, where Captain Mullah, like a brave soldier, went down with the ship. So it was a concerted effort by all. And while these three corps were moving in towards Dhaka, the Pak Air Force flew about 4,000 sorties compared to just less than half of what the Pak army could fly. Pak army basically could just make about 1,000 odd sorties, which were ineffective, and these 4,000 sorties by the Indian Air Force totally shattered the morale of the Pak Air Force and also the Pak army on the ground. And finally, on 16th of December, when Dhaka was encircled, a message was sent to Lieutenant General Niazi, who was the commander of the East Pakistan Army, by Sam Bahadur, that you can surrender if you want, because you have fought well, and surrendering as soldiers to another soldier is not a dishonor, and we will treat you like soldiers. But then Niazi thought about it. At that time and point, General Manekshaw sent the Chief of Staff, General JFR Jacob, to meet Niazi, who went on the chief and his army commander's behest, met Niazi, gave him half an hour, and when Niazi was in double mind, he formulated the instrument of surrender and gave it to him. And the historic picture which is there showing Niazi and General Arora signing the instrument of surrender. And mind it, this was one of the greatest surrenders, when 93,000 armed soldiers surrendered unconditionally. And this is one of the biggest surrenders after World War II. They put down their arms, and also civilians and families put down and were taken to safety. At that time, Mrs. Indira Gandhi had told General Manekshaw to go and take over this surrender. But then he, as a great leader that he is, said, "It is not my honor, but the army commander's honor," and ordered General Arora to go ahead with the instrument of surrender. And when these prisoners of war were there are many of stories of how they were well treated by our soldiers. And also, Sam had given directions that there will be no loot, no rape, no murder, because we are a disciplined army which has gone in to help the weak. So we should not get into any kind of controversies. And also, the prisoners of war were treated very well according to their rank and their religion. There are many stories of how they have been well treated. So, this is how this great general who became the first field marshal of our army and of our great country architected a victory for us and created this nation of Bangladesh. And today he is a legend and enigma. And the 1971 war has given us many lessons. And I hope the Pakistani army also has taken these lessons and will learn from it and will remember what our army can do, because in our officers we have the best of leaders, which even the Pakistan army Jawans accept that if we had officers like you, we could do much, much better. And it is a fact. Our officers, our men are the best, and they will not let the country down in any circumstances. So I finish my life here with only one thing, that the armed forces is the last bastion of a nation. Let us not let it down and keep the glory of the armed forces and the flags flying high. And we are there to fight for you, support you, and defend you while you all can sleep peacefully. Jai Hind.